are some of these more rigid theological perspectives of American evangelicalism. Would you say they caused you've seen them cause religious trauma? Do you consider yourself someone who experienced some trauma due to a religious faith or evangelicalism, your brand of it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to write the book is because I was seeing kind of out in public, because of social media, I was seeing a variety of really interesting conversations happening, on Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere really in the last several years about what it means to be evangelical, what it means to grow up in, what is really kind of a specific insular culture, and also one that's obviously been very influential in our politics and the larger culture, and just a very big subculture that encompasses a lot of people. So there's sort of a shared language, a shared worldview, as much as there is diversity of opinion and practice within evangelicalism, and it's hard to define what evangelicalism is, I think there is sort of a shared experience of being in that world. And then for many people who have left it, there's a shared experience. And one of the things that people were talking about in these spaces that really didn't exist until fairly recently is this idea of religious trauma. And there have been a couple of books written about it. There are a growing number of, clinicians, therapists, mental health practitioners who are beginning to talk about it, research religious trauma, sort of understand it. And, one of the challenges is that, and I talk about this in the book, is that, there is a lot of research that suggests that being part of a religious community is really positive for many people, that, there are correlations in some research between mental health well-being and being part of a religious community. And so I think for people who do experience traumatic events or traumatic theology even, it can be harder to kind of tease out what's doing the work there. And, I didn't have a language for it, but I talk about my brother in that chapter and myself, just some of the, really almost kind of textbook trauma responses that we had to some of the things we were taught, this very vivid, literal hellfire and brimstone, view of the afterlife. I talk a lot in the book about, my relatives who I believed were going to hell and the fear that I felt, and the, really visceral, vivid kind of fear about that. And that's just one example. I mean, I talk to people who grew up with a terror of the rapture, being told this really kind of novel, relatively new theological idea of the last 150 years at most, I think.
That's right. Yeah,
that we're all going to be sort of taken up into the clouds and the sort of left behind, or if you're a little bit older, thief in the night vision of the rapture and the apocalypse. I interviewed one woman who talked about coming home and finding that her mother, kind of as a joke or a test, had staged this fake rapture, and she, left her clothes sitting out, and this girl just lost it, believing that she'd been left behind. And, her mother came out later and, said, no, it was just a joke. But she said, why were you afraid? If you're, there must be something wrong with your faith if you, thought you weren't taken.
Yeah.
So, if you didn't know it was a joke. So, those kinds of things that are, they're not the classic types of trauma that you think about. It's not a car accident or abuse, although certainly abuse can and does occur within a religious context and under sort of religious auspices for some people. But these are things that are more sort of, the day-to-day, how you're growing up, how you're being told to see the world, see yourself, your body, your nature, and then how to see other people. And for a lot of people that I know, for myself and for people I interviewed, and also this is backed up by some of the researchers that are doing this kind of work, the response to that, especially for people who as children are raised with those ideas and have no real outlet for it, no way to cope with it, no alternative perspective, those, manifest in ways that look and feel a lot like trauma.
Yeah.
And I think, when you overlay the sort of theological, spiritual, religious piece on top of something that's just already scary, I think that can mess with people's minds, and their hearts and their spirits. Like something that's supposed to be a source of comfort is a source of real terror. And that complicates, how you see yourself, your emotional development, and also how you see God.
Yeah, that's right. No, you're spot on.